The same sun shines on two people standing side by side. By sunset, one person's skin is painfully red. The other barely changes at all. Same beach, same afternoon, same sunlight. So why did their bodies react so differently? It's a question almost every child has asked at some point. Why are humans different colors? For centuries, people answered that question with myths. Some imagined different origins. Others believed skin color reflected superiority or inferiority. But the real story is far more fascinating because it isn't really a story about color, it's a story about survival. To understand it, forget maps, forget countries, forget race. Travel back nearly 200,000 years. Picture a small group of humans walking across the African savannah. They look remarkably familiar. They laugh, they argue, they comfort frightened children, they celebrate new life, they grieve their dead. In every important way, they are already us. Above them burns the same sun that shines on us today. Every morning it rises. Every evening it disappears beyond the horizon. It asks for nothing. It speaks no words. Yet for hundreds of thousands of years, it quietly shaped the human body. Not through heat, through something invisible. Ultraviolet light. You cannot see it. You cannot smell it. You cannot feel most of it. Yet it carries extraordinary power. Too much ultraviolet radiation can damage cells and reduce folate, an essential B vitamin involved in healthy cell growth and pregnancy. Too little ultraviolet light makes it harder for the body to produce enough vitamin D, which is essential for healthy bones, muscles, and many other functions. Long before humans understood any of this, nature was already searching for a balance. One remarkable molecule helped solve the problem: melanin, the pigment responsible for much of the color of human skin. Rich amounts of melanin helped protect people living beneath intense tropical sunlight. It wasn't about appearance, it was about survival. For thousands upon thousands of years, the balance worked. Then something extraordinary happened. Humans began to move. Not in one great migration, not because someone decided to explore the world, simply because each generation searched for food, water, safety, and a better tomorrow. A family followed a river farther than their parents had. Their children crossed hills no one in the family had crossed before. Their grandchildren reached a coastline where the land seemed endless. They had no maps, no compass, no idea they were changing history. To them, it was just another journey. But over hundreds of generations, those small journeys became one extraordinary migration. The descendants of that family spread into forests where sunlight struggled to reach the ground, across open grasslands beneath brilliant skies, into mountains wrapped in snow, along windswept coastlines, into lands where winter seemed to last forever. They weren't searching for different worlds. They were simply trying to survive in the one they had. Yet, everywhere they went, the sky was different, the seasons were different, and the sunlight was different. Without realizing it, one human family had begun a new conversation with the sun. That conversation would last for thousands of generations. Not because anyone chose it, but because nature is patient. Evolution doesn't transform a population in a lifetime, or even in 100 lifetimes. It works so slowly that no one living can ever watch it happen. Children resemble their parents. Grandchildren resemble their grandparents. The changes are almost invisible, until enough generations pass that the difference becomes impossible to ignore. In places close to the equator, the sun remained intense year after year. There, darker skin continued to offer a powerful advantage by helping protect the body from high levels of ultraviolet radiation while preserving folate. But farther from the equator, the challenge changed. The sun still rose each morning, yet much less ultraviolet light reached the ground, especially during long winters. Now the body faced a different problem. How could it produce enough vitamin D when ultraviolet light had become so scarce? Over many thousands of years, natural selection favored genetic variations that allowed more UV light to penetrate the skin in those environments. Gradually, lighter skin became more common in populations living under lower average UV levels. No one decided this. No one planned it. No one even knew it was happening. The human body was doing what it has always done: adapting. Not to become different, but to thrive where it lived. And that's why there is no single correct human skin color. Every shade represents a balance between two biological needs: protection from too much ultraviolet radiation and access to enough ultraviolet light to produce vitamin D, change the environment. And over enough generations, the balance changes too. That's why human skin doesn't divide neatly into separate categories. It changes gradually across the planet, much like the changing intensity of sunlight itself. The closer a population lived to regions with consistently intense UV radiation, the more darker pigmentation tended to be favored. The farther populations lived in regions with lower average UV levels, the more lighter pigmentation tended to become common. The Earth was quietly writing its story onto the human body. Not with borders, not with languages, not with cultures, but with sunlight. And while the colors slowly changed, something far more important never did. The people beneath them. The parents still held their children. Friends still laughed around evening fires. Families still mourned those they lost. They dreamed. They loved. They hoped. They remained the same remarkable species that had first looked up at the African sky. The sun had painted humanity in many shades, but it had never divided the family. Then, something happened that evolution could never have predicted. Humans began changing the rules. We stopped adapting only to the environment. We began adapting the environment to us. We built homes that sheltered us from the sun. We stitched together clothing that protected our skin. We learned to store food through harsh winters. We crossed oceans in ships. Then crossed continents by rail. Then crossed the world by air. For almost all of human history, your ancestors probably lived beneath skies similar to those of their parents and grandparents. Today, a child can be born on one continent, grow up on another, and spend adulthood on a third. Human migration now happens faster than evolution can keep pace. That's why the relationship between skin color and sunlight has become more complex than it was for our ancestors. Modern medicine, nutrition, clothing, architecture, sunscreen, and supplements all influence how we live under the sun. Some people need to pay close attention to getting enough vitamin D, others need to take extra care to protect their skin from excessive ultraviolet exposure. The same sun still shines, but the world we built has changed the conversation, and perhaps that's the most beautiful part of the story. The color of someone's skin doesn't tell you how intelligent they are. It doesn't tell you their kindness, their courage, their dreams, or their worth. It tells you something else. It tells you that the human body has an extraordinary ability to adapt. It tells you that somewhere in the distant past, generation after generation faced a particular sky, a particular climate, a particular pattern of sunlight, and survived. The next time you notice the color of someone's skin, don't just see pigment, see a journey. See countless generations walking across deserts, following rivers, crossing mountains, settling forests, and learning, one generation at a time, how to live beneath a different sun. Every shade of human skin is a page from the same family history. Not the story of separate people, but the story of one human family that learned to call an entire planet home. The colors changed. The family never did.